Now to discuss in depth, we're joined by I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent Ariel Osirant and Yaakov Lapin, security analyst and host of the Lapin Assessment, which I hope you all take in. Yaakov, first, look, it seems the fate of this whole situation appears to be up to one man, President Trump. Giving diplomacy a chance, is that the best way to describe this? And under what terms, how expansive, what do we know about what they're going to actually discuss and negotiate over?
I think what we're seeing is President Trump apply classic gunboat diplomacy. It's the Americans that actually pioneered this concept in the 19th century. You amass a naval and, in our modern version, massive aerial firepower around the target, Iran, and then you call them in for negotiations. And Iran has answered that call. Now, this creates a lot of concern in Israel and other places that know that Iran is a master negotiator. And as soon as it goes down the negotiations black hole, some observers will be saying, look, the Iranians are very good at buying time. They're very good at deception. In fact, they may be the best at this in the entire international arena. So the question is, will the Iranians give Trump enough for him to call this off? Because he is looking for a deal. And he probably has been looking for a deal from day one, because at the end of the day, he has proven his credentials in his mind. We had the first Iran intervention back in June. We had the Venezuela operation. Now he wants to start leveraging these targeted operations. And Iran, predictably, and also I would say from its point of view, skillfully, has said, look, if you think you can do a sort of short targeted operation, forget about it. Anything you do will be considered an act of war, and we're going to respond massively. Whether they actually do that or not is an entirely separate question. That's their poker face. So at the end of the day, President Trump wants a deal. The Iranians are going to try and sell him one. The question of whether the gap it can be bridged is completely unknown. What we do know is that the Americans, from an Israeli perspective, should be demanding an end to all uranium enrichment. They should demand an end to the ballistic missile program, because if that continues to be built out, Israel is going to have to strike that again. That's considered its own independent existential threat, separate to the nuclear issue. If Iran has enough conventional ballistic missiles, that in itself is intolerable. And the proxies. The Iranians are going to try and throw out the missile and the proxy issues and keep these talks focused purely on the nuclear issue. How this is going to play out is anybody's guess, David, but we're going to have to watch this very closely. I think Israel has quietly transmitted some of its red lines. We'll have to see where this goes.
Yeah, alongside how much is still under the sands there, concealed, a lot of work to do. But the focus here seems to be, again, the UN label used to, again, conceal issues. How big of a deal is that at this point?
Well, I mean, for those who know what Hamas is, a brutal terrorist genocidal organization that will stop at nothing, use every civilian cover possible, the UN, every Gaza hospital, a mosque, a school, medical clinic, the residential buildings, and the people of Gaza themselves as human shields. This is standard modus operandi for the largely unaware Western world. Unfortunately, this news will either not reach them or they'll wave it off. Look, at the end of the day, I think there's another insight here when it comes to finding these arms. If we look at the amount of resources that Hamas spent in turning the Gaza Strip over the years into the most heavily armed, most dense urban warfare terrorist fortress.
Yeah, pre-war described as the most formidable fortress ever
yeah,
built.
Absolutely. Really with the tunnels and the IEDs and anti-tank missiles and you name it. It's the densest, most challenging urban warfare arena on the planet. Any idea, and this is what we're hearing again and again from Washington, that there's some sort of deterministic, inevitable outcome in which these entities, Hamas or we were talking about Hezbollah earlier, will disarm, is simply not grounded in reality. This is not their ideological DNA. Their ideological DNA is exactly the opposite. It's about rearming, and that's what Hamas is doing. It's doing it slowly. I don't want to give the impression that they're getting all the arms they want. They're not, because the IDF is sitting on the Philadelphia corridor, but they're still making IEDs, which is not complicated to make. I've had confirmation of that they're able to use very simple material to start rebuilding their IEDs. They're trying to dig more tunnels. They're not going to disarm, David. And any claim or sort of American notion that this is what the inevitable outcome of these talks will lead to is simply avoiding the elephant in the room. The only way to properly disarm Hamas or Hezbollah is through military force. Otherwise, we're just going to be dealing with deception.
Is maintaining operational control. Is anything set to change in this deployment at this point? Now that we're sort of entering phase 2 of the deal, is Israel supposed to back off of any of this sort of security patrolling or make room for other forces? Any what do we know about what's supposed to happen in that territory that Israel controls so far?
The Israeli interpretation of the 20-point Trump plan is that any withdrawal is completely contingent on Hamas disarming and Hamas allowing for the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, as we've just previously discussed. That's not going to happen. And so the bottom line is that the IDF is going nowhere in the Gaza Strip. And in fact, it's continuing to demolish terrorist infrastructure, discovering tunnels, as you mentioned earlier, which is astonishing because think about it. We're talking about an area that's under full IDF operational control, very little operational challenge
from
some of these
places. That's the case for almost 2 years now already. Things are still being discovered.
Exactly. So that gives us a glimpse into how much work is waiting for the IDF if and when it's ordered to take Gaza City from Hamas. That's not something that's about to happen, but it gives us a glimpse. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to also talk about Rafah. We've had reports the defense establishment has told the government here, Rafah should not be allowed to turn into some sort of gate for massive amounts of goods, because that is going to really boost Hamas as a ruling terror regime.
A big topic in question. We'll get into this later, so I'll hold you on that one.